I just built this entire data analytics dashboard in like 15 minutes using AI. In the past, a task like this would have taken me 3 full days to complete. And you're probably watching this, thinking to yourself,
Oh my god, AI is going to replace data analysts.
and I am not gonna sugarcoat things for you. Data analytics is changing at a very fast pace. What we have now is a surge in candidates taking the exact same online courses. They're learning the exact same set of skills, and then they're applying to the same entry-level data analyst positions. The barrier of entry has also reduced because AI can do a lot of technical tasks very well. It can write SQL queries, it can come up with Python code. So not only are you competing against, say, all of the people who have taken this Google Data Analyst certificate, which is like over 1 million people, but now you're also competing against AI, which has dramatically reduced the amount of time taken to produce an analysis. So in the future, there might be a situation where instead of hiring 5 data analysts to do the job, companies might just hire like 1. You need to do a lot more than just learn the core technical skills. You need to strategically build on top of these skills. You want to use AI as leverage instead of competition. And in doing so, you will be able to climb the corporate ladder, set yourself apart from other data analysts, make more money, and ultimately achieve more success. And in just a minute, I am going to explain to you exactly how you can do this. But first, who am I to tell you all of this? Well, I have worked in the field of data science and data analytics from 2021. So I have 4 years of experience in the industry, and I'm witnessing firsthand the impact of AI integration into our day-to-day job. So I'm literally working every single day in the trenches as I'm telling you this. So I'm not telling you this to scare you, I'm telling you this to prepare you. Look, I personally believe that there is still space for data analysts in the next 5 to 10 years. But the role is changing. Seniority is becoming an expectation. The lines between different tech roles are getting blurred. Roles like data analytics, data science, machine learning engineering, and even software engineering. And you're expected to do more, produce more, learn faster, and just get things done in a shorter period of time. But through all of this chaos, I believe that there is one type of data analyst who will not just survive, but thrive in the face of the AI revolution. And if you are just getting into data analytics, then I recommend that you prepare for this specific data analyst position. And that is the role of a product data analyst. And now you're probably thinking, Natasha, you just told me that AI is probably going to replace data analytics, that data analytics is oversaturated, and now suddenly you're telling me to become a product data analyst? What even is that? Well, that is exactly what today's video is for. In this video, I am going to explain to you what is a product data analyst, the difference between a traditional data analyst and a product data analyst, the skills that you need to become a product data analyst, and my own personal experience working as a product data analyst at a large tech company. First, let's understand the difference between a traditional data analyst and a product data analyst. Meet Brian. Brian is a traditional data analyst. He works an entry-level data analyst job that he got almost a year ago. Brian is very happy with his work. He really likes what he does. And his job constitutes of pulling data from SQL and building dashboards using that data, identifying which segment of customers have stopped transacting in the past 3 months, pulling data from the company's CRMs and multiple marketing channels, and identifying why conversion rates might have dropped from the previous month. Now, this type of role requires you to know some Excel, SQL, Python, as well as data visualization and dashboarding. This is the exact type of role that I had at my first data analytics job, and it certainly isn't easy. However, AI is lowering the barrier of entry to do such jobs. Every single task that I mentioned earlier AI tools like ChatGPT, Cursor, and Claude can help you do like 10 times faster than ever. So Brian is using these AI tools and he is becoming way more efficient at his job. He's taking on a lot more projects. But sometimes Brian feels like he is becoming more of a prompt engineer than a data analyst. And the company realizes that Brian's job can be done a lot more quickly with AI. So what do? They freeze hiring. Instead of hiring new data analysts, they take all of the work and give it to Brian. So Brian has more responsibilities, more ad hoc analyses, more reports, more dashboards. So Brian is busier than ever, he has more responsibilities than before, and he's getting better and better at prompting AI. He has a stable job, he's getting modest 3% salary increments every year. But sometimes Brian feels like his responsibilities haven't changed that much since the past year. He wants to do more, make more money, climb up the corporate ladder. He wants to get better at his job, not just use AI to do the same job faster. Here's the thing, Brian is on a traditional data analyst path, which is not bad. It is a stable career. But by simply repositioning himself, he can climb up the corporate ladder a lot faster, make a lot more money and business impact. He already has all of the skills to do so. Now I want you to meet Sarah. Sarah is a product data analyst at a social media company. And here's what Sarah's job looks like. Firstly, Sarah works with the Reels team to build social media Reels. And she realizes that the Reels feature is not performing very well in certain countries. She then collects data and performs some analysis on this feature. She takes that data and works closely with the design team to build new features that will bridge this gap. Sarah is also working on this new Creator Boost program. Her job is to figure out whether boosting new creators on the platform will lead to increased creator retention without having a negative impact on user engagement. Spoiler alert, an analysis like this is rarely straightforward. You need to conduct an A/B test and the results are going to be quite hard to interpret. And what's even more difficult is explaining the results of an experiment like this to a non-technical stakeholder. Sarah also needs to sit in these product review meetings and she needs to challenge the assumptions made by business stakeholders. For example, one day the VP of marketing comes in and says, hey, let's increase the length of Reels to like 2 minutes. Sarah then needs to pull out actual user behavioral data showing that attention span drops at the 35-second mark. Do you see the difference between Sarah's job and Brian's job? Sarah's job isn't necessarily more technically complex than Brian's is. In fact, they share the exact same set of skills. They both know things like SQL, Excel, Python, and some dashboarding and data visualization. It's the same set of skills. But here's what's different. At Sarah's job, she actually gets to influence product decisions. For example, the new Creator Boost feature, if this feature gets rolled out and makes over $1 million in revenue, this means that Sarah has directly contributed to a project that has made the company over $1 million. And that is why Sarah gets promoted faster, she gets more recognition and more money. Also, let's talk AI. Sarah uses AI every day at her job. She uses it to write SQL queries, automate report generation, and dashboard creation. But AI hasn't even come close to taking her job. Because while AI does a decent job at writing SQL queries, it cannot sit in a meeting with the VP of marketing and a bunch of business stakeholders and explain to them why it is a terrible idea to launch 5-minute Reels. While Brian used AI to automate his job, Sarah used it to amplify her impact. She used it to make faster product decisions, which equals faster feature rollouts, which means more revenue for the company. And this leads to faster promotions for Sarah and more money in her pocket. Now, how can you become a product data analyst? I have actually worked both roles. So I used to be a traditional data analyst for like the first 2 years of my career, and I'm now working as a product data analyst. And the skills that you need to know for both roles are pretty much the same. Things like Excel, SQL, dashboarding, statistics, and some knowledge of programming. And I have an entire video on my channel explaining how you can learn each of these skills, so do check that out if you're interested. Now, if you want to become a product data analyst, then here are some additional skills that you need to learn on top of your core data science skills. Skill number 1 is A/B testing and experimentation. So let's say you have a landing page or a website, and you want to know what button color would lead to more engagement and more clicks. Would a green button perform better, or maybe a blue button? To understand this, you can conduct an A/B test. First, you would select a sample of users who visit your website, and then you would randomly split this sample of users into 2 different groups. One group will be shown the green button and the other group will be shown the blue button, and whichever gets the highest number of clicks per user will be launched. What I have just explained is the simplest possible way to conduct an A/B test. There is so much more that goes into experimentation, like making sure that you're choosing groups with equal distributions, as well as concepts like statistical significance and statistical power. I was actually asked a ton of questions about A/B testing and experimentation during my own product data analyst interview, and I managed to get through it thanks to this course. This is a free A/B testing course that you can find on Udacity, definitely not a paid promotion, and it is taught by people who work as data scientists at Google. Skill number 2 is defining product metrics. This is something that traditional data analysts usually don't do, but it's something that product data analysts do literally every day, and that's defining success metrics. So here's a simple example. Let's take the New Creator Boost program. This is a program that gives new creators a boost on the platform. It gives them more views and more engagement. If you are a new creator, you would be really happy by this program because it's going to give you a lot more exposure and a lot more views. As a result, you would start posting more often and you would stay on the platform for longer. And that is exactly what platforms like TikTok and YouTube want. But what is considered a new creator? Is it someone who has posted their first video on the platform? Is it someone who has been on the platform for 1 month? Someone who has posted their first 5 videos on the platform? Also, what if after the initial boost, after that's over, the creator sees a sudden drop in every metric? They suddenly have lower engagement, lower views, and their content is reaching fewer people than before. Could this lead to even worse churn? Is this worse for long-term retention than just doing nothing in the first place? These are all things that you need to take into consideration. Also, as a platform like YouTube or TikTok, you don't just need to consider your creators, you also have to consider your viewers. What if viewer engagement goes down because people are just not interested in watching videos from creators that they've never seen before? As a product data analyst, you need to take all of these factors into consideration when building out a success metric. In this case, the product data analyst might decide to create 3 different success metrics. The first for long-term creator retention, the second for short-term creator retention, and a final metric to make sure that viewer engagement is not impacted by this feature launch. To develop these success metrics, you need to have a really strong understanding of the domain that you're in. In this case, the domain would be social media platforms. You also really need to understand who your users are and what they care about. In this case, your users would be the creators, people who are making content, and it would also be the viewers, people who are consuming this content. And you also need to be decent at math to be able to build out these kinds of success metrics. Product data analyst interviews will usually give you use case type questions, and they will say, based on this use case, how would you define a success metric? Now, to answer questions like this, I recommend 2 resources. The first one is Product Analytics Academy. This is a YouTube channel, and I specifically recommend watching their 1-hour-long YouTube video on how to define product success metrics. I also found this article really helpful, and I will link it down in the description below. These 2 resources should be enough for you to answer success metrics related interview questions. Skill number 3 is event tracking. Now, let's say you've already decided on your success metric. For example, for the new Creator Boost program, you have decided that your success metric is going to be creator retention rate. To actually calculate creator retention rate, you would need to use actual events coming into the app. For example, how often does the creator upload? How often does the creator open the app? And you would have to take all of these individual events, combine them, and actually build out your success metric. Typically, you would do this in SQL. Often, you might define a success metric, but the events that are required to build those success metrics might not be available. For example, you want to track creator retention. To track creator retention, you need to know how often creators are uploading. But what if the platform does not capture uploads? So every time a creator uploads, that event is simply not being tracked on your platform. You need to then go to the engineering team and tell them to start tracking every time creators upload on the platform. Of course, this is a very simple example, but what I'm trying to tell you is that as a product analyst, if you're defining success metrics, you need to make sure that all of the events needed to track the success metric are being captured by the application. And if they're not being captured, you need to work with engineers to make sure that they get tracked. Now, how do you learn this skill of event tracking? There's some really helpful reading material on event tracking on this blog called Amplitude. I recommend going through it. I will link it down in the description below. This event tracking framework is also super helpful, and it's going to be useful in answering event tracking related questions during your product analyst interview. Skill number 4 is applied statistics. Now, this is a skill that most data analysts already have. You just want to be able to use statistical concepts and apply it to real data sets using programming languages like Python and R. And then you want to take the results of that analysis and be able to make some kind of business decision or recommendation using it. So here are some topics that I suggest learning specifically for product data analytics. Hypothesis testing, statistical significance, things like what is the difference between statistical and practical significance, effect sizes, p-values and how to interpret them. I also suggest learning causal inference, just the basics, along with selection bias and Simpson's paradox. To get started, I suggest using Khan Academy as a resource. All you need to do is type the name of the specific topic that you want to learn and watch the video tutorial that comes along with it. So I would go to a platform like Khan Academy and I would watch a video tutorial on a topic, let's say hypothesis testing. And from there, I would learn all of the theory behind that topic. And then I would go to ChatGPT and I would ask ChatGPT to generate a data set as well as some Python code to perform a hypothesis test on this data set. And this way I was able to understand and really bridge the gap between having a theoretical understanding of the subject versus being able to actually apply it onto a real data set. And this has been a game changer for me. It has helped me ace the statistics portion of the data science interview. Because let me tell you, product data analyst interviews, they are not easy. The field is pretty competitive, which I will explain later on, but the hiring managers won't just ask you to explain a topic, like explain what hypothesis testing is. No, they will give you an actual data set or they will give you a real world use case and they will ask you to code out a solution for them. So you have to know not just the theory, but also the practical application behind that concept. So now you're probably thinking, okay, but where and how can I find product data analyst jobs? Well, FAANG and other large tech companies hire a lot of product data analysts. And that's because these companies are rolling out new features literally every day. Experimentation and A/B tests are literally the bread and butter of these companies. So if you look at Meta as an example, Meta hires for product data analysts under the following titles. They mean the same thing. And this is how much Meta pays their product data analysts. Between 250 to 380K, whereas they pay their traditional data analysts anywhere between 180 to 280K. So there's actually a pretty massive difference between how much they pay their product data analysts, a lot more, versus how much they're paying their traditional data analysts. Other than Meta and FAANG, I also want you to focus your search on fast-growing startups that build user-facing products, e-commerce companies, fintech and healthcare tech companies, basically any company where the product is the business. Think PayPal, Uber, Spotify. Also, another thing that I want to point out is that companies are usually abysmal when it comes to naming their job titles. So any of these job titles could be referring to a product data analyst role. In fact, some job titles will just say data analyst or data scientist, and they might be referring to product roles. So don't just rely on job titles. You actually need to take the time out of your day to read the job description to be able to figure out whether something's a product role or a traditional role. Some giveaways that this might actually be a product data analyst role is if you see keywords like A/B testing, experimentation, working with cross-functional teams, presenting to stakeholders, defining success metrics. So really make sure to read the job description of these postings to understand whether it is a product role or a traditional role. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground. We have learned what it means to be a product data analyst, how you can become one, the skills needed, as well as where to find product data analytics jobs. Remember, AI is changing the way we work at a rate that is much faster than you can possibly imagine. The changes that I've seen working in this field for the past 4 years is crazy. It is insane how much faster things are getting done with AI. At this stage, we all need to make ourselves more marketable. We need skills that can complement AI, not compete with it. And that is where product data analysts come in. I think that product data analysts, because they add so much direct revenue to the company, will inevitably be compensated better and be able to climb up the corporate ladder faster than the traditional data analyst path. Also, many product data analysts I know have actually managed to switch to multiple different roles in tech, one of them being product manager. And being a product manager is undoubtedly one of the most AI-proof careers in tech right now in the midst of all of these layoffs, simply because of the diverse set of skills needed to become one. Okay, so to succeed in analytics, I think that you really need to do two things. The first is use data analytics, and the second is use data analytics to create measurable business impact. Because at the end of the day, if the company gets paid, you get paid. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. It may not be a big thing for you, but as a small content creator, this really helps me grow and it helps me produce more content and tutorials like this one. Thanks again. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.